Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 times I ran away as a child. I was my mom's pet. She used to call me her little man, okay? My brother's 2.5 years younger than me. She used to call me her little man. My dad left when I was 4. I was born in Alexandria, Virginia. We lived in Burke until I was 6. My mom married my stepdad, which ironically was the same time that my aunt had hooked up with that extremely wealthy man. This just going to show how these siblings were competing with each other from a very young age. Because my aunt had, her baby was 2 weeks, so my cousin is 2 weeks younger than me. And then her brother, my other cousin, is like 6 months older than my brother. Okay, so you can see how these two women, and these two women were only like a year and a half apart. So you can see how they were highly competitive for their mother's attention, for any attention. They were highly competitive against each other. So at 6 years old, my mom hooked up with this guy. He moved us down here. We moved into my grandfather's old hunting cabin, A-frame hunting cabin with a little addition built onto it up on the top of a mountain. There were only like 6 other homes up there, and most of those were hunting cabins as well when we first moved there. My stepfather came from a family of 13. He was the youngest. He was a street kid out of Massachusetts. He was about 10 years older than my mom. They were very religious Christians. So he introduced my mom. I believe my mom grew up Catholic, which Catholics are the most harmless fucks. I mean, Catholics don't even know what they believe in. They just know they got to go to church once a year to say that, to get God to, or the priest to forgive them of their sins, and then they're going back to heaven. You know, it's a joke. But so that to me, Catholics are a very, Catholics as a population to me are a very, non-dangerous group of people. The Pentecostals and the Rollers and the Southern Baptists and these types are the kind that are very dangerous, which is the kind we were. So between the ages of 6 to 8, we were slowly indoctrinated with this Christianity. But everything in my life seemed fine at that time. My stepdad would spend a lot of time with us. He would take us outside. I mean, we did a lot of camping, river stuff, just stuff outside, just hanging out. He would teach us like martial arts. He was a martial artist. So all kinds of stuff, just spending time with us. And my mom, somewhere in between this, had 2 more kids. And like, that's where my timeline's all fucked up, because that's where things started getting bad. Somewhere in between having them 2 kids is where she would get into arguments. It'd be prior to having those 2 children. She would get into arguments with my stepdad. And see, it was an A-frame, so it was open in the front with a large area. And then me and my brother had a room in a loft that overlooked the A-frame. And so at a very extremely young age, my mom would, my mom would call me her man. She would always build me up as being her man, And so from a very young age, I would hear, in the middle of the night, my mom and my stepdad arguing, and like things getting thrown against the wall and all kinds of crazy noises. My mom just screaming, and I mean, just bad, really bad, like very extremely scary stuff. And I would take my brother and hide in the corner, to protect him. And then after my stepdad would leave, my mom would come upstairs, her mascara. I mean, she looked like a fucking clown out of hell. Mascara, I mean, just unbelievable. And she would show me like bruises on her arms and stuff. And I mean, I was extremely young, guys. I can't even remember how young I was when this started, but I'm guessing about 8 was when this started, 8 years old, right around there. And so this went on for, I don't know, a long time, where every time we would hear them, I would just, I'm sure she had built it up like, honey, you're doing the right thing. Protect your brother. You just hide. When you hear that happening, you hide. And as soon as it's safe, I'll come up and see you. That shit like that, right? So that's what I would do with Hod. Well, one day I decided to take a peek for myself to see what was really going on. And what I saw changed my life forever. Because what I saw did not add up to everything that I was hearing over the course of 6 months or a couple years, however long it was before I finally got the balls as a young child to actually look to see what was happening. Because I used to ask my mom, when she would come up afterwards and my stepdad would leave, I would be like, why do we let him back in the house? I'll protect you. Let's just keep him out of the house. And I never understood why she kept on letting him back, if the abuse was so bad and things were like she said they were. So one evening I decided to peek around the corner, and it absolutely shocked me and completely changed my life. What I saw was an actress. I saw my stepdad standing at the front door with his bag, his shoulder bag. And I assumed he was just trying to get out the front door. But he was just standing there. And my mom was literally just picking shit up that was next to her. She was standing in front of the door, blocking it, screaming at the top of her lungs, crying, throwing herself around in a fit, throwing things, hitting the wall, scratching at him. And see, what became so clear was that I never heard my stepdad yell in all these times of them arguing. I would just hear my mom screaming, saying things like, "Oh, that hurts, don't touch me. Oh my God, I can't believe," just unbelievable things she was screaming. But him, I would only hear, you could only hear because he had a deep voice, but I'd never hear him raise it. You could hear him speaking, but you could never hear him yelling. You could never make out what he was saying. My mom was literally putting on an act for us kids and for herself and for my stepdad, because see, she would call the cops too on him. After that time, she came up and she must have been able to tell that I had, because my whole spirit had changed towards her when she came up after he had left that time. And she knew the gig was up. She knew that I knew. She knew that I wasn't an idiot anymore, a useful idiot. And I remember her looking at me, giving me this look like, are you going to play along? Which side are you going to take? So I lost all respect for my mom that day. at a very young age. And from that day on, every time they'd argue, I would look. And every time it was my stepdad just trying to get out the door, just trying to move her from the door. And after a couple times, I think my stepdad had figured out, I don't know if I had told him that I had seen what had happened because I was an extremely honest child. I don't know if I had apologized to him, and because I harbored a lot of hate towards him, even though he was the one that gave us all the attention and love. Because see, what my mom was also doing at that time, when my stepdad would go to work, he was an electrician. He would go to work, my mom would come up with a list of things that we should get beat for. And when my stepdad would get home, he would take us, he had told her, look, I'm the man, I will take care of the discipline. And so he would take us in the room by ourselves, and she would have a list of things that we were supposed to be beat for that day. And instead of beating us, he would beat the bed. But he taught us, he was like, you guys got to scream, you know. He would hit us a couple times lightly, you know, on the ass, just to make sure that there was a mark, you know, so that way my mom could see. Because my mom would check. She would check our legs and everything to make sure that he was beating us. She was a disgusting, disgusting narcissist. She was a disgusting, evil woman. So my stepdad, once he realized that I knew what was going on, you know, in between this, guys, they had 2 more children. They had both my sisters, you know, trying to make things work and whatever. You know, that's what I said. The reason people have kids, to bring love into their home and think it's going to make things better instead of facing their shit. Because you can imagine the trauma and abuse my stepdad went through, and the stories I heard of his childhood were unbelievable as well. So it had gotten to the point right before he actually left and dipped out for good that he would tell her, you know, Tina, move, and, you know, try to get her out from in front of the door. And she would just refuse. My mom was psychotic, dude. She had some serious fucking issues. She was unchained, uncontrolled. And the reason I bring this up is going into this next video I'm about to make, because I'm at my limit here at 13 minutes, of how when he left, the unhinged abuse and the things that she would put him through got completely 100% put on me. So I'll start there on my next video.